All right, folks, let's see if we can bring Thompson's argument home here. See if we can make all of these trolley cases and surgeon cases and other cases that we're thinking about, make them all cohere, make them all make sense with respect to some particular principle that we come up with. The principal distinction that Thompson left us with at the end of the last lecture was that in the permissible cases, you deflect a threat from a larger group onto a smaller one. And in the impermissible cases, you bring a new threat to bear on the smaller group. And that for some reason, that matters. We don't yet know what reason that is, but for some reason, that matters. To try to figure out why that matters, Thompson asks us to switch gears for a minute. Switch from thinking about harms to goods, she says. Maybe we can make sense of it if we come at it from the other side. Instead of thinking about the evils that people might do, we think about the benefits, the goods that might be available to them. So she asks us to suppose that there are 6 men who are dying. 5 are standing in one clump on the beach, 1 standing further along by himself. Floating in on the tide is a marvelous pebble. Call it the Health Pebble. It cures what ails you, she says. The one needs for cure the whole Health Pebble. Apparently he's really sick. Each of the 5 needs only a fifth of it. They're not quite as sick. Now, in fact, that Health Pebble is drifting toward the one, so that if nothing happens, nothing's done to alter its course, the one will get it, headed toward that one person. We happen to be swimming nearby and are in a position to deflect it toward the 5. Is it permissible for us to do this? Well, sure. Maybe even we should do this because we could save 5 lives and let that one person die rather than letting those 5 die and saving that one. It doesn't seem to matter much that the pebble's already drifting toward him. Why not? Why doesn't it matter that the pebble's drifting toward him? Well, it's just happenstance. It's pure chance that the pebble's drifting toward him. It'd be different if he owned the pebble and he'd lost it and now it's drifting back toward him and he's about to find it. It'd be different if we promised him the pebble and then directed it toward the 5. It'd be different if he'd won the pebble in a game of pebble roulette, right? If they knew the pebble was coming in and they allotted themselves spaces on the beach to stand to try to capture the pebble, and those were picked by flipping a coin or something, and he happened to be in the lucky spot, then it seems like now it matters where the pebble's drifting in. They've made it matter. If the 5 had intentionally caused the one's illness, if they'd caused him to be sick, hoping to kill him, then it seems like it matters that it's drifting toward him and he should get it. So what makes those cases different than where it's just drifting along and they happen to be standing in certain spots on the beach? Well, in those cases, the one has a claim on the pebble. He has something akin to a right to it. He has a claim to it. He can demand it, and if someone takes it away from him, he can be aggrieved about that. Not just sad that he didn't get it, but pissed off at the person who took it from him because it was his. He deserves it. He has a claim on it. So maybe that's what's going on here. So let's probe that idea a little bit more. Let's probe the idea that we can make sense of this distinction in terms of whether or not someone has a claim either to some good or against some harm or against some evil. And that's where Thompson takes us next. So she asks us to consider another case. This time, rather than a claim to some good, we're going to look at a case where someone has a claim against some harm happening to them, a claim against someone rather than to something or on something. So she gives us a neutrality case. The 5 on the track ahead are regular track workmen repairing the track. They've been warned of the dangers of their job and are paid specially high salaries to compensate. The right-hand track is a dead end, unused in 10 years. The mayor, representing the city, has set out picnic tables on it and invited the convalescents at the nearby city hospital to have lunch there, guaranteeing them safety from trolleys. The one on the right-hand track is a convalescent having his lunch there. It would never have occurred to him to have his lunch there, but for the mayor's invitation and guarantee of safety. And Edward, or Frank, the trolley driver or passenger, is the mayor. In this case, the one has a claim against Frank, or against Edward, whoever's driving the trolley. The one has a claim against the mayor that he not bring harm upon him. He's promised him safety. He would not be there but for the mayor's assurance of his safety in this circumstance. He wouldn't have had lunch on the trolley tracks unless the mayor guaranteed it was going to be all right. He was going to be safe. So, in this case, the one has a claim against the trolley, against the trolley driver, against whoever's controlling the trolley, that the five do not have. They've assumed this risk. And so it seems that Edward or Frank cannot deflect the trolley. Right? It would be wrong. It's impermissible for them to direct the trolley toward the one who has a claim against them. So maybe we've made some progress here. Let's look at another case. This time the five on the track are regular workmen repairing the track. The one on the right-hand track is a schoolboy collecting pebbles on the track. He knows he doesn't belong there. He climbed the fence to get onto the track, ignoring all the warning signs, thinking who could find it in his heart to turn a trolley onto a schoolboy. Thompson says, in this case, the schoolboy, even though he's an innocent schoolboy, doesn't have any stronger claim than the workmen do to his safety. In this case, she says, at risk of seeming hard-hearted about schoolboys, the trolley must be turned onto the one schoolboy. Right? He's violated the rules. He's brought this harm on himself in some sense. He's taken this risk upon himself. And so he has no claim against the trolley drivers to be safe from harm brought about by this runaway trolley. All right, so this claim idea seems to be doing some work. Well, how about in some of our earlier cases? How about the surgeon cases? David the surgeon in particular, the surgeon who's going to carve up one healthy person to save five people who need transplants. Well, in this case, we can say that David can't take the parts of his one to save the five because the one has a claim on those parts. You don't own your body parts like you do your car or your clothes, but they're still yours. They belong to you in some sense, in some important sense, and no one can take them away from you without your consent. No one has a right to them. No one can make a claim to them that's stronger than your claim to them. So yeah, this helps us with David the surgeon. He can't make the individual who would be carved up has a claim to those body parts, a claim that they not be used to save someone else. So does this do the trick? Well, what about George and the Fat Man? This case is harder. George doesn't take anything from the man he pushes. He doesn't take away his organs. He doesn't steal anything from him that he has a claim over. He takes his life, he kills him, but so does Edward when he turns the trolley. Or Frank, in our early cases, when he turns the trolley, and we said that was permissible. So he doesn't do anything other than take his life, which Edward is already doing, yet we want to be able to distinguish between these two cases. We want to say George can't push the fat man, but Edward can turn the trolley onto the adjacent track so that it kills the 1 rather than the 5. What's the difference? It can't be that George, or that the fat man has a claim against George. Compare this case. Donald's a great diagnostician. 5 of his patients are dying. By chance, Donald learns of a healthy specimen such that if Donald cuts him up into bits, a peculiar psychological process will be initiated in the 5, curing them. Donald can cut his healthy specimen up into bits, killing him, thereby saving his patients, or he can refrain from doing this, letting his patients die. Right? In this case, Donald's not taking anything from the 1. He's not using anything that the 1 has a claim over. The 1 has a claim against Donald that he not harm him, but no more so than the others have a claim to Donald's care. Yet we still think that Donald shouldn't carve up the 1 just to initiate this strange process that would cure the others. Maybe claims aren't exactly what we're looking for. They don't bring all of the cases together. They don't give us a single principle that unifies all of the cases. So what does? What else is going on here? Well, Thompson tells us to think about it this way. Suppose that in the original story, where the pebble's floating in on the tide, we are, for some reason, unable to deflect the pebble away from the 1 and toward the 5. All we can do, if we want the 5 to get it instead of the 1, is to shove the 1 away, off the beach, out of reach of where the pebble will land. Or all we can do is drop the bomb on the 1. Or all we can do is cut the 1 up into bits. This is different, right? In the original case, with the pebble floating in, we wanted to say, well, the 1 has no claim to that pebble, and so we can deflect it to the 5, and that would be fine. We're not doing any harm to the 1. We are benefiting the 5. The 1's going to die, but better that the 1 die than that the 5 die. But now, the pebble's floating in, and we can't divert it. All we can do is act on the 1 to prevent him from getting it, to undermine his fair chance at getting it. Why would it be wrong to do that? Why is it permissible to deflect the pebble when neither the 1 nor the 5 has a stronger claim to it, but not permissible to shove the 1 out of the way? Well, Thompson says that the distinction comes down to acting on a person versus acting on an object. If the 1 has no more claim on the good than any of the 5 has, he can't complain if we do something to the pebble, to the object, in order to bring it about that it's better distributed. But he can complain if we do something to him in order to bring about that it's better distributed. He has some right not to be used in that way, not to be manipulated in that way. It's a violation, in this case, of his autonomy, his ability to make a choice for himself. Similarly, the fat man on the bridge, when George pushes him, his body is violated. George isn't just moving the trolley from one track to another. He's pushing the person. There seems to be something important about that. Right? That when we don't have a claim to something, we can't complain when someone diverts it to someone else. We can be upset, annoyed, we can wish that it had happened otherwise, but we can't complain. But whether or not we have a claim over that thing, if it's coming toward us and we're likely to get it, it's going to be good for us. If someone pushes us, moves us out of the way, intervenes by manipulating us and not the object, well, now we have more than just the right to be a little annoyed or upset. We have the right to be pissed off at that person. We have the right to make a claim against them for having harmed us. So there seems to be something really important about violating the individual's body in some way. Thompson goes on to say that the special nastiness in David, if he acts, lies in this. In the first place, he gives to 5 what belongs to the 1, bodily parts. And in the second place, in order to bring about a better distribution of the ailments threatening his 5, he does something to the 1. He cuts him up. Now that is 2 wrongs that David has committed. Right? That's the special nastiness here. He's done 2 wrongs. So now we've got 2 principles that work together to make sense of all of our cases. In the cases where one has a claim to some good or against some harm, then either preventing them from getting that good or imposing that harm on them violates that claim, and so you cannot do it. And in cases where no one has a claim, but where someone's body would have to be acted upon in order to bring about a different distribution of the harm or the benefits, then their bodies cannot be acted upon. We can act on the objects to change the distribution, but not on their bodies. That's Thompson's solution to this set of trolley problems. Now, the trolley problems go on. They've proliferated since Thompson's initial paper, and others have proposed different ways of thinking about this solution. Some have said that it is permissible when the choice is not an intentional one, but rather just causes collateral damage. As long as you don't intend to harm the person on the track, as long as you don't intend to harm the 1 to save the 5, it's permissible to harm the 1 to save the 5. Right? You don't want them to suffer, but you have no choice but for them to suffer in order to save the others. They're merely collateral damage here. So intentions seem to matter. Now, if you intend to harm the 1, that's wrong. And in order to use the fat man to stop the trolley, you have to intend him harm. You have to intend to push him off the bridge. So maybe that gets us somewhere. Another way this has been thought about is in terms of using one as a mere means to one's end. Right? In the case where you push the fat man off the bridge, you're using the fat man as a means to achieve your end of stopping the trolley. A mere means. You're using him as if he's an object. But in the case where you shift the trolley from one track to another, you're not using the person to stop the trolley. You're not using them as a mere means. It just so happens that the trolley's going to kill them as you've diverted it from killing the 5. But that's not using them to stop it. Now, Thompson later introduced the trolley loop case to argue against this idea that using someone as a mere means is what's at stake here, because in the trolley loop case that you're looking at right now, the option is between killing the 1 and killing the 5, but the way that the death of the 5 is prevented is by using the 1 to stop the trolley. You switch it to the other track, and on that track it would still kill the 5 if the 1 weren't there. Right? So the 1 is preventing the 5 from dying. You're using the 1 as a means to prevent the death of the 5. And Thompson says, well, that's crazy. If you can move it when the loop's not there, then you can switch the track when the loop is there. That little bit of track shouldn't make a moral difference. So it can't be that we're using them as a mere means to an end. Here, in this case, her intuition and mine as well is that you can still move, shift the trolley to the track with the 1 and save the 5. So using another as a mere means doesn't seem to do the work that some have wanted it to do here. In any case, these trolley problems go on. And the task of philosophers who want to use these as a way of arguing and as a way of developing their moral theories is to find the principles that unify all of our intuitions about these different kinds of cases. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what we've tried to do today. I'm sorry this video got a little bit long-winded, but I hope you find it useful. Take care.